This video will go over lessons 5-9 and 5-10, but before I go to 5-9, I want to wrap up lesson 5-8. I don't feel like I left that video clear enough for you. With the example on page 226, we found the measurements of the school courtyard, 45 feet long, 30 feet wide. Initially, I set up the proportions, but looking back, I think that the best strategy is just to use that scale. 1/2 inch is 10 feet. So for every 1/2 inch, it's 10 feet. So I can take 45 divided by 10 to get 4.5, and then 30 divided by 10 to get 3. So this grid paper here is not very well drawn, but what you would do is do 4.5 inches or 4.5 squares there for the length, and then 3 squares for the height. So that is the remainder of 5-8, and then we'll look at 5-9 and 5-10 examples in this video. So on page 532, we're starting with similar figures, and we have a couple of vocabulary words there. And make sure that you have this drawing in your notebook. The notations on each of the angles is important to remember, with one little arc matching up with one arc, 2 matching up with 2, noting that those are the parts that are congruent in the triangles. And then the symbols that we need to make sure and remember, the similar to symbol, and then the congruent. So you need to make sure you understand how to write those symbols, and then also how they're correctly notated using the drawings given. So make sure you have that written down. Going down to the page, we also have corresponding parts, another vocabulary word, and we have another little symbol there. So all of these things should be on your note sheet for lesson 5-9. On page 233, we have another example, our first example, example 1. You can read through that. I'm going to work out the Got It problems at the bottom of page 233. Notice for 1A, I already have the problem set up here. 5 centimeters over 30. We have 5 corresponding to 30, okay, equals B over 24. The proportion is there, and I can cross multiply, use cross products and divide, but I can also simplify 5/30ths to 1/6, and then I can do this mentally, because 6 times 4 is 24. 1 times 4 is the answer, which is 4 centimeters. Again, a couple of different ways to do that. If I would have multiplied 15 times 24 and divided by 30, I would have got the same answer. On 1B, I have my proportion written out, 7 over 4, and I got that by flipping the bottom picture. You have to pay attention to those sides that are corresponding. So notice here the 3 arcs going to the 2, that matches up with this side right here. So that's why I wrote my proportion, or my first ratio was 7 over 14. And then I set that equal to, 7 over 4. Scratch all of that. Sorry about that. 7 I put over 4. And I could have done 7 over 14, but then this proportion wouldn't have looked the same. So I'll work them out both ways, just so you know either way works. So with what I already have given, 7 over 4, let me use a different color here. I did 7 over 4, and then I did 14 over A. And the reason I set it up that way is so I could do it mentally. 7 times 2 is 14. 4 times 2 is 8, which is the answer. But let me go back to what I originally was saying, 7 over 14. I could have done 7 over 14, and then I would have done 4 over A. Okay, so it is okay to write these proportions in different ways. No matter how you set them up, you're still going to get the same answer. So we have 14 times 4, which is 56. And then 56 divided by 7 is also 8. So either way would have worked. Notice I had a couple of different ones written out here before, and I crossed them off because on this particular example, let me go ahead and erase the marks. This triangle right here needs to be flipped. And when you flip it, the parts, you need to pay attention to the parts that are corresponding in order to set up that proportion. On the next page, we have a problem in the middle of page 234. A rectangular blue tile has a length of 4.25 and a width of 6.75. Notice that I put the length and the width next to that because when you're writing these proportions, you need to make sure that you have the numbers in the right position. So a similar red triangle has a length of 12.75. Notice my 12.75 is in the numerator because that's where I had my other length. Okay, if you were solving for the width, you'd want to make sure and have it in the denominator. When you cross multiply and divide, you get 20.25 inches. That's it for lesson 5-9. Make sure to watch the video tutors and use your resources to watch additional examples if you need it. On lesson 5-10, we're talking about indirect measurement. An indirect measurement is right there, a definition in the middle of page 238. It allows you to use the properties of similar triangles to find measurements that are difficult to measure directly. And again, you have a couple of resources here with your video tutor and a watch that we haven't explored before, but that might be something worth checking out to see what other resources you have. At the bottom of page 238, I have a drawing of a bell tower right here that we do not know the height of, but we know the shadow was 27.6, and we also have a 6-foot tall person casting a 1.2-foot shadow. The proportion can be written a variety of ways. I went ahead and wrote down the height of the bell tower over its shadow, the height of the person over its shadow. That X can be moved around into different places, but you just want to make sure and use the corresponding sides when you're solving. When I do cross multiply and divide for this example, I get that the tower is 138 feet tall. Going to the next page, I have an example in the middle of page 239. Again, it's telling me that triangle QRS is similar to URT. So I'm going to use the lengths given to write a proportion. I use the hypotenuse of the triangle X over the hypotenuse of the other triangle 60 equals one of the legs 138 over 46. And again, this could be written a variety of ways. I could have started with 46 over 138 equals 60 over X. You can write it however you want, but when you cross multiply and divide, you should get that 180 yards no matter how you set up the proportion. And that's a distance of 180 yards from the cabin to the mess hall. Again, use your resources, watch the extra video tutors, and use your online resources to make sure that you understand the concepts in these lessons before you start on the homework. I know it's easy to fall into maybe a pattern of just not watching the videos or not doing all the homework or taking notes, but during this chapter I will be checking your notebook for a grade, and I'm looking for those notes to be taken and your homework problems to be corrected and incorrect problems being worked out. And then I'll also expect that you are calling me for additional help on Google Hangout if needed. Thank you.